Since 2006, Mattel, Disney, and Pixar have been crafting one of the most comprehensive toy lines of all time, based on the Cars franchise. And in this series, I'm breaking down every diecast ever released in it. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Disney Cars Diecast History. Today, I'm going to be breaking down the history of every Sally diecast ever made from 2006 all the way through to 2024. I'm very excited to do this. The history of Sally in the diecast line is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting stories of any Cars character ever. Sally, at the beginning, had very few variants made of her. Despite being one of the main Radiator Springs cars, she really didn't have all that many for the first 10 years or so of the Cars diecast line. But after the release of Cars 3, things really started to ramp up for Sally, as she started to get included in more and more special edition lines, as Mattel and Disney in general seemed to really start treating her more like the main character she is. In addition to this, around this time as well, Mattel tried to update Sally's design in the diecast line to make her a bit more movie accurate, and that led to several other wild stories and variants and strange inconsistencies that I can't wait to get to. So, let's begin the diecast history of Sally. But before we do, as always, I'd like to thank all of these wonderful people here on screen for sending me footage of some of the Sally variants I'm missing. And if this is your first time watching the series, I recommend pausing right here to read this. This is the template that I use for every item we talk about in Cars diecast history. With all that out of the way, let's begin. In 2006, we would receive Sally. Regular old Sally was part of the initial lineup of Cars singles in early 2006, and she's gone on to be one of the most released Cars diecasts of all time. You could find her released in every single year of the Cars diecast line, except for 2011 when Cars 2 initially came out. This year, Sally was not included in the diecast line, but she would make it in 2012 in a Cars 2 multi-pack. This made Sally one of the only Cars 1 diecasts to be re-released in the Cars 2 line. Sally would also be released several different ways when Cars 3 came out in 2017. She's always around in the Cars series, so her diecast is always available. Despite a few different updated versions of Sally releasing over the years with more accurate molds, this is still the one that we receive in the diecast line to this day. Although it should be noted that in late 2022, in the Training Day at Willys Butte 5-pack, this Sally was re-released with some updated details, like a slightly lighter shade of blue, new facial expression, and updated lights. Strangely, these changes would stay exclusive to this 5-pack and another 5-pack in 2025 that's reusing that variant of Sally. And in all other releases, regular Sally has continued to have the original facial expression and color scheme. You'll soon come to see that constantly trying to update Sally and then undoing it is a pretty common trend for Mattel. It's a very strange anomaly that we'll get back to a little bit later on in the video. But all you need to know for now is that this Sally, despite several more accurate variants of her releasing later on, continues to be the go-to main Sally for the Cars diecast line to this day. Sally doesn't really have all that many different looks in the Cars movies, so it would take until 2008 for us to get a new one with Sally with Cone. Based on the brief scene where Sally bumps into a cone and it lands on top of her, this is the first Sally to have a different facial expression. As you can see, they tried to make her eyes a bit larger, define her eyelashes a bit more. This is basically how all Sallys will look from here on out. No more of the strange, small-eyed design from the original release. This Sally also has a mouth plate with a unique mouth expression, and this is the first ever Sally to have her spoiler raised up on the back, revealing her tattoo. 2009 would see the launch of the first ever lenticular diecasts. These releases were identical to their regular diecasts except for the eyes, which were lenticular, meaning that they had two different expressions depending on how you held them. In 2009, all lenticular diecasts had one expression be their eyes open and the other be their eyes closed. Sally was number 48 in the 2009 lenticular lineup. In 2009, Sally would receive her first ever expanded universe variant with Snow Day Sally, based on the book Mater Saves Christmas. She features a new expression, an adorable pair of earmuffs that wrap around her roof, holiday-themed pinstriping on the side, and special snowflake hubcaps. She's one of the most frequently released Christmas cars, and most recently, you can find her in the current holiday line, the Wintertime Cruisers, which has been released every holiday season since 2021. 2010 was the final year we only got diecasts based on the first Cars movie, and it would give us two new Sally variants. Up first, the second edition of Lenticular Sally, who now had her eyes looking from left to right. She was released in both a single and in a 3-pack with Red and Lenticular Wet McQueen. Yes, that's real. A lot of fans really didn't like how the lenticulars looked, and they would stop being released after 2010. In 2013, however, a special edition wave of re-released lenticulars would come out, and Sally would be one of the lucky few to hit store shelves again. The Color Changers line would also launch in 2010, special plastic cars that change color in water. Sally goes from blue in warm water to purple in cold water, and would be one of the harder to find 2010 releases, making her quite desirable when she was re-released in 2015. 2011's release of Cars 2 caused it to take over the diecast line for that entire year, as well as in 2012. And we wouldn't receive any new Sally variants from the movie. She doesn't have any new looks in Cars 2 anyway. But for our next Sally, we're gonna have to look elsewhere. In fact, we're gonna have to look beyond Mattel, as 2013 saw the release of the Cars Star Wars crossover diecast line, a toy line of Cars characters representing different Star Wars characters, released exclusively at the Disney parks. Like many Disney Parks exclusive items, these weren't made by Mattel, but instead by the Disney Parks Company. Despite this, they're considered by many to be part of the 155 scale diecast line, since they are 155 scale and very clearly inspired by Mattel and made to go alongside them, so we sort of grandfather them into this series. Sally, of course, portrayed the role of Princess Leia, which starts to fall apart when you realize that Luke was played by McQueen. Yikes! She's dressed up like Leia from A New Hope, complete with the iconic hair buns on the side, represented with lug nuts and a piece wrapped around them. The card back features some very nice artwork of Sally as Leia, depicting her in the hallway of the Tantive 4, where she puts the Death Star plans into R2-D2 at the start of the movie. But easily the coolest detail on this Sally is her license plate, which reads 1138, a reference to THX 1138, George Lucas's first feature film. The number 1138 shows up as an Easter egg all the time in Star Wars, and it's super cool to see that they did that here. While most of these Star Wars cars feature molds that are pretty identical to their regular diecasts, Sally was actually given a slightly different mold, made to be a bit more movie accurate, although it's a lot smaller than her regular diecast. Our next Sally would be released in the 2014 main line, a new variant of Sally from the first Cars movie. This is Sally with Tattoo. This is, simply put, a regular Sally with her spoiler up, revealing her tattoo underneath it, and she also has a unique facial expression looking up and to the side. This item would be re-released in 2020, now made in Vietnam, as part of the Target exclusive Welcome to Radiator Springs series. Like all cars in the initial lineup of the Welcome to Radiator Springs series, she would come with a sticker and a re-released accessory. In Sally with Tattoo's case, she came with a dinner table from her date with Lightning at the Wheelwell Motel in Cars 2, previously released in a Cars 2 themed 2-pack from 2013. They just tried to find accessories that vaguely related to each character. What movie the accessories were from versus what the car was from clearly didn't matter here. But this re-release of Sally would be the subject of a ridiculous printing error, as every copy of 2020 Sally with Tattoo is missing the tattoo. No, I'm not joking, it's not there. And while I would assume this was probably fixed later on in the lifespan of the item, I unfortunately couldn't find any information regarding that, so I'm not sure if they ever did correct it for this release. I hope they did, though. 2016 would bring us a pretty rare occasion for the diecast line, a new expanded universe Sally. In fact, this Sally, from the Road Trip series exclusive to Walmart, would be the first ever Sally diecast with a design original to the diecast line, Previously, the only other expanded universe Sally we had was Snow Day Sally, who is based off of Mater Saves Christmas. This was the first time a Sally was ever made specifically designed for the Diecast line, and it's crazy that it took 10 years for this. The road trip line featured characters dressed up for vacations, and Sally was no exception, with a piece of luggage on her roof. She also has a trailer hitch on her back, a detail that every car in the series had, as some characters were packed alongside trailers that could attach to these hitches. Sally was not one of these releases, but you could connect her to any of the trailers released. As you can see, so far there haven't been all that many Sally variants, but in 2017 this starts to change, as this year we received 3 variants of Sally, the most ever in one year so far. This year, Sally joined the Precision series in its 3rd wave. This was a line of more accurate Cars diecasts aimed at older collectors, who featured high-quality rubber tires and far more accurate designs for the characters. This Sally was a major upgrade from the original, making her far more accurate, with significantly better shaping, coloring, a brand new facial expression, and also, as a special feature for the Precision Series release, an openable trunk. This reveals her engine, as of course Porsches have their engines in the back. You can also see that this Sally has her spoiler up. This Sally clearly blows the original out of the water. They barely even look like the same character at this point, and she is probably the Precision Series item with the most amount of changes from her original release. Packed in with the massive Cozy Cone Motel set was a light-up Precision Series Sally. This has pretty much the same design as the single, but the gimmick of an opening trunk has been swapped out with a light-up feature where Sally's headlights and taillights light up for a few seconds if you push down on her back window. The Radiator Springs Classic line was a Toys R Us exclusive diecast line that originally planned to only make re-releases of characters from the first Cars movie. However, as time went on, that changed, and in late 2017 for Cars 3, they made a special wave of Radiator Springs character variants, including this, an updated variant of Sally with Tattoo. As you can see, this is clearly based on the Precision Series model, trying to bring some more accuracy to Sally variants in the regular diecast line. Now, since this is a regular single, it doesn't have the Precision Series additional features like the rubber tires or the opening trunk, but the model is a pretty good match to the Precision Series Sally design, albeit in a cheaper regular diecast line form. She's even looking off to the side like the original Sally with Tattoo, although in a different direction. The entire Radiator Springs Classic wave that this Sally came from was pretty hard to find, releasing internationally in late 2017, but not hitting the US until early 2018, just a few months before Toys R Us closed down here forever. This has made this Sally, and pretty much any item in this wave, pretty rare, especially because this Sally hasn't been re-released. In 2020, they decided to re-release the original Sally with Tattoo instead. So by now, we've had Precision Series Sally and an updated Sally with Tattoo. Well, 2018's Diecast mainline would finally give us an updated variant of regular Sally, finally bringing an updated Sally to the mainline. This Sally was once again clearly inspired by the updates made on her Precision Series design, although she has a slightly different, more rounded off mold, and notably doesn't have her spoiler up. All of the previous updated Sallys we've gotten so far have had their spoilers raised, this one doesn't. Although they accidentally still printed the tattoo on her. Updated Sally was sold both with and without a plastic collector card, depending on the case, something that Mattel was trying to implement into the Cars diecast line at the time. When this item first released, there was actually an error where Mattel accidentally re-released regular Sally instead of putting out this new one that they were supposed to. But when it did come out, fans absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, for unknown reasons, this item has never returned past 2018, and it was just swapped out with the original Sally once again. There's been much speculation as to why this Sally has never returned, with many people speculating that the switchover of Cars production from China to Thailand, which happened only a few months after this Sally came out, may be the culprit. This, of course, is just speculation. The real reasoning behind this is unknown. This Sally comes from a really strange period of the Cars Diecast line where they were trying to update a bunch of the main characters and then just kind of stopped. We saw this with Mater and Flo. The only Radiator Springs car that consistently has updated variants released to this day is Ramon. But due to just how inaccurate the original Sally is, a lot of fans really want this updated Sally to come back and be the norm, and are very confused as to why this hasn't happened. But hey, at the very least, she is out there if you want to buy her online, but she does go for a good deal more than a regular Sally does. In 2019, we would get the first ever Metallic Sally, released as part of the Scavenger Hunt line, a line that just took pre-existing cars released that year and made metallic variants of them. Now you might notice something. Metallic Sally is actually based on the 2018 updated Sally mold, with this being the only time that Thailand did their own take on it. By 2019, they'd already reverted back to the original Sally, and any new Sally variants made from Thailand since this have been based on her original mold, so this kind of stands out as a strange outlier. It has a nice shade of metallic blue, very similar to other metallic blue items that Thailand has made. It also doesn't print the tattoo over the spoiler, a nice correction from the original. In 2021, a new variant of Sally would be released as part of the Racing Red series. This was a special collection of metallic red cars, and while never confirmed by Mattel, most fans assume that this was made to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the Cars series, as we got a few different characters from each movie, and Sally was one of the 6 characters chosen for it. This Sally is based on her original mold, but with a new, more character-accurate expression and a beautiful shade of metallic red. Like all the Racing Red cars, any of Sally's details that weren't her original blue color have been changed to silver. It's really nice to see that Sally, of all characters, was selected for this special toy line, really cementing her legacy as a significant character to the Cars series. Which is nice, considering just how few Sally variants there were before the past few years, and how many times they made other Radiator Springs cars, but not her. Another new Sally would release in 2021 as part of the second wave of the Pixar Fest line. This was a special series of cars made to celebrate Pixar Fest, an event that happens at Disneyland every few years, although in 2020 and 2021, when we got Diecast for it, it was a virtual event due to the pandemic. This Sally's pretty similar in design to Racing Red Sally, using the original model with a metallic color scheme. This time it's a nice shade of metallic dark blue. She even keeps the silver license plate used on the Racing Red item. She has an updated expression, very similar to the Racing Red one, and she's decked out in Pixar details like the Luxo ball and lamp. In early 2022, a new Sally color changer would finally hit store shelves. Changing from light blue to purple, much like her original, this Sally is actually a brand new mold for her color changer, based on the Precision Series model. It's just a cycle with Sally. They can never decide what they want her diecast to look like. Color changers are actually made in Vietnam, not Thailand, and they also released several plastic maters based on his Precision Series model. Interesting to see that these are the designs they go with for the color changers sometimes. Vietnam also handled the Welcome to Radiator Springs series, and in early 2022, they made a few releases that were actually updates of main characters, one of them being Sally. No, your eyes do not deceive you. In 2022, Vietnam brought back the 2018 updated Sally mold. Guys, I swear half of the Sallys they've made are just different updates to her. This release was praised by fans when it came out, not only for the return of the 2018 updated Sally mold, but also for design choices made with her. She has what many claim to be the most accurate color scheme ever made for a Sally diecast, the lightest shade of blue we've ever gotten, with a slight metallic sheen to it. Unfortunately, though, it does still have the tattoo misprint. The Sally would come packed alongside a plastic keychain, as all Welcome to Radiator Springs cars did at the time. And our final Sally comes from 2023 as part of the D100 line. This was a series of cars made in the main line in order to celebrate Disney's 100-year anniversary. Mattel took a really cool approach for these cars, painting them all in a beautiful platinum silver. They almost look like statues, and each of them were just given one splash of color to reference their original color. Sally, for example, had her hood changed to a metallic blue. A lot of people saw this as one of the weaker D100 releases, especially because of the change to her hood color. A lot of other characters had much more cleverly placed other colors, like McQueen's lightning bolt or Ramon's flames, but Sally doesn't really have an area that you could change the color of, so they went with this. Regardless, it's always nice to see a new Sally variant. In fact, it's pretty cool that we got here, to a point where Sally, who used to barely get any new releases, is now being released in nearly every special edition diecast line they do. For years, we would just get one Sally here or there every once in a while, but nowadays we very frequently receive her. Sure, not as much as McQueen or Mater or like Ramon, who always has new paint jobs, but it's nice to see Sally get a lot more respect from the diecast line. Even though she doesn't have that many looks in the movies, they are now coming up with frequent, fun new ideas for her for special edition series. It really cements her legacy as one of the main characters. And there you have it, everybody, the full history of every Sally diecast ever. Like I said earlier, I think Sally has one of the most interesting stories out of any Cars diecast. A character who very rarely gets variants, going to one that got an absolute ton because of constant attempts to try to update her, only for those updates to fall through. And after the smoke cleared and we stopped getting updated Sallys, well, now we still get frequent Sallys released anyway in different expanded universe lines. Sally's a fascinating case to me, and a character that I think deserves a whole lot more than what she's given in merchandise and expanded media. It's great to see that Sally's been focused on a lot more in merchandise and other media after the release of Cars 3. I think she's a great character, somebody really deserving of more diecasts. There you have it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching another episode of Diecast History. Next time, we're going to be covering another character with not all that many variants, another character that we could discuss in one video, the legendary, fabulous Hudson Hornet. I'll see you guys next time for Doc Hudson Diecast History. Bye now.